future destination.
I'm Emily Lutzker.
And I'm Anna Kamasya. Today, International Arrival speaks with Michelle Im, a Korean-American ceramic artist based in Queens, New York, whose work explores themes of home, displacement, and cultural identity in the context of globalization.
Welcome, Michelle.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for coming to chat with us on this gray day.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to jump right in. You just finished a residency at the Museum of Arts and Design here in New York, in which you finished a new body of work that circulates around this idea of the flight attendant and Korean air. And so I wanted to start by talking a little bit about this project, sort of where this idea came from, and this figure of the stewardess, which I found so intriguing.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that piece. And I just started building another one, and another one will follow. But the flight attendants really kind of came out of exploring my cultural identity and just my past experiences. And the flight attendants for me, they kind of symbolize home in that, you know, being Korean American and holding two vastly different cultures. In my body, I feel that the flight attendant is like the perfect, idealized, version of home for me. And I think what it is like I went to Korea in February, and I hadn't seen my parents in like 7 years. I feel like a lot of people don't really like to travel or sit on a plane for 15 hours, but for whatever reason, I feel like that plane ride for me is like probably the most tranquil place on earth. And it's very kind of meditative, and you just start to think about everything in your life. And just like looking at the flight, I mean, I'm mesmerized by the flight attendants. Really, that's what sparked this idea. And they're just so perfect looking, you know, like their uniform, and I just can't take my eyes off of them. And it's like this feeling of being like comforted and feeling at peace and thinking like they almost make me feel like home is this perfect place, which it's not. And they kind of exude that, and you kind of like buy into it. Yeah, so it kind of like started with that, and really just like an observation of these flight attendants, and just looking like the aesthetics of their uniform and their hair and how they carry themselves. And it just seems very well orchestrated. And then the other thing to that too is like, I guess maybe in some ways, like I'm starting to realize that I identify with that kind of work too. Like I worked in fine dining for a while, or worked in the service industry for about 8 years in New York City while developing my ceramic practice. So I think like, I definitely identify in that type of role of like, this female character, and sort of it's like gaining control through repression, really, which is like kind of twisted, but I don't know, there's some sort of like pride in like doing that kind of work and like serving and putting on the show, and it's a performance and it's a dance. And so yeah, those are kind of all the ideas.
I love it. I really love this fascination with the flight attendant. And for me too, I kept thinking about it as a transitory figure, sort of between Korea and America, as being in that other space. Because as you're in the airplane, you're not in Korea and you're not in America, so you're in this other space. And so for me, when I saw the stewardess, and we should tell the listeners too that the stewardess that you have built is about 4 feet tall.
Yeah, it's like 46 inches tall. Yeah, so not quite life size, but yeah, they're a little bit shorter, and they're supposed to be a little bit kind of creepy too, you know?
and impressive. I mean, it's impressive seeing this statue with her outfit, you know, and her scarf, and her scarf comes back in your other work too.
Yeah, the scarf.
Yeah. And so
all in the scarf.
And the tying of the scarf, like how it is.
Yeah. I mean, historically, the flight attendant is such a iconic archetype, right? I mean, from this kind of 1960s, it was like a great job for a woman on the go, the modern woman, you know?
Totally.
So, and it's of course evolved now a little bit, but I totally identify with this kind of aspect of it of being like service, but also control.
Yes. Yeah. You're
and
in
and
control.
Performative, like you said, it's a performance. It's a performance of what is Korea or
Yes.
what is America, or, it's a national performance in so many ways too. Just even the choice of colors or the outfits and who designed them. And
The Tiffany blue. Of course, they're going to choose the Tiffany blue and white or cream.
Do you feel the same way that they're this kind of symbol of home when you're traveling back here to the U.S.?
Yeah, it's almost like, I think on the way back, I'm more thinking about like grief. It's like, oh, I'm leaving this behind. And it's, I think coming back, it's a little bit harder because they're this, symbolizing home, and I'm leaving home behind. And I'm not really sure like what home is at this point. It's like, I'm so divided.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah. It's like the idea of home, the feeling of home, which is like my parents, my family. Most of my family live in Korea. It's the food. It's like the smell of the streets and all of that.
yeah, it's a sensual thing too, I think, that it is about how your senses feel in those spaces.
Yeah.
You can't always put a finger on what it is exactly. It is the smells, and it's the way the things feel or look or the colors or
Yeah.
make it familiar.
And the totality of the experience, kind of inspiration for memory, sort of catalyzes your memory.
Yeah.
All the things.
Part of when I visited you in your studio last, part of a story that you told me was about the Nutgate incident of 2014 involving Heather Cho, the then vice president of Korean Air. So I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on that story and how it comes to play in your ceramics, because I think that the beauty of this figure too is that it's also playful.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a little bit of sinister in there too.
Yeah.
And so I like the sort of layered understanding of the flight attendant.
Yeah, because it's a type of work where you have to hold everything in, and whatever you're feeling inside, you can't really fully express that. And so when I relearned about this incident called Nutgate, I was like, oh my God, this is like the perfect story. Because like 10 years ago, what happened was Heather Cho, the vice president at the time, daughter of CEO of Korean Air, she got on the flight of Korean Air and then was served a bag of macadamia nuts still enclosed in the packaging. And she flipped out because they weren't opened for her and served on a plate in the proper way. And so she attacked the flight attendants and then made the plane turn around. And then she kicked the flight attendants off. And it was like this whole national outcry. And what's really funny about this, though, it's like in true Korean fashion, because like I feel like dark humor is like a theme in like a lot of Korean cinema. I don't know if you're familiar with like Bong Joon-ho and like Parasite, that movie.
Yes,
it's like the sales of macadamia nuts right after that like soared through the roof, and it's just like. I can just imagine like everybody just freaking out, about this thing happening, and like also kind of rejoicing in a way of like locking up this woman who clearly has like mental health issues, and so yeah, that's kind of the story of Nutgate or Nut Rage. Yeah.
So she was basically like a very senior person of Korean Air in charge, and by way of not getting her macadamia nuts unwrapped, she sort of saw the need to turn the plane around and cause a major air traffic incident. Is that right?
Yeah. And she went to jail. She served jail time. Like it was supposed to be a year or something like that. But, she got out after like 5 months.
But still, she did 5 months in prison for it.
I'm sure it was like kind of different than your regular prison experience.
Yes. Well, it's all wild. This sounds like it was really, 2014. So it was pre the prevalence of nut allergies, everywhere. Because I think now, you get on a plane and if one person says they're allergic to nuts, then everyone has to empty their bags. No nuts. It's a big.
Oh, I didn't know that was like a thing on flights. Because I do remember being served nuts, and I don't remember the last time I got nuts on a plane.
Exactly. I mean, I was on a flight recently.
Some dudes.
And there was a whole announcement. Please do not eat any nuts, open any package, containing nuts during the course of this flight. We have an extreme nut allergy traveler on board.
Ooh.
It was a big announcement.
Wow.
And I imagine if, nut allergies were really, I would say, common during 2014, at least there would be an excuse, not to open the package.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So how did you turn this incident into artwork?
Well, I made some vessels that had paintings of like a flight attendant with, I think one of them, she's like holding a tray with like a mound of macadamia nuts. And then right now I have a piece in a group show at a gallery here called Ruby Dakota. And it's a smaller sized flight attendant figurine. And she is holding a tray with just two macadamia nuts. I was like thinking about the movie The Matrix, how you're supposed to in that
choose
scene.
one.
Yeah.
Take the red pill or the blue pill.
Yeah.
Take the left nut or the right nut.
Yeah. Left or right.
In your work, you use the vessel as often a metaphor for the body.
Yeah.
And I think you play with traditional Korean vessels, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah.
The moon jar. And you adapt them to sort of these contemporary references and often deeply personal contexts as well.
Yeah.
And so, I love the way that the scarf comes back into these moon jars too, where you tie them onto the moon jar. And so maybe you can talk a little bit more about your relationship with the vessel or the moon jar.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this year, I was really kind of thinking about my practice, and I really wanted to change my studio work. And I just went back to my first love, which is Korean traditional ceramics. And out of these forms, the moon jar is a very iconic form. And what I find very interesting about the moon jar is it holds the dualities in it in the construction of the piece. So traditionally, it comes from the 18th century and the Joseon dynasty. And so the way it's built is that they're thrown in two bowls separately, and then the bowls are then joined together. And then it often it has there's often like a mark of imperfection at the center where the two bowls meet. And so I was thinking about that and thinking more symbolically about this. And I was like, oh, this is like the perfect vessel to kind of explore my cultural identity of like holding two vastly different things together. And so I kind of played around with this moon jar form, and I guess my criticism or like thoughts about the contemporary interpretations of moon jars is that they're often done in just like a very perfect way, like thrown on the wheel and usually coated in like a really bright white glaze. And I guess when thinking about that and seeing a lot of contemporary moon jars in Korea, I wanted to kind of like push back against that, because that aesthetic for me, just like, it's beautiful. But it's like almost like too pure, because it almost is not reality for me. So, and I think it's more messy to like have, the American culture and Korean culture are just so different. It just can't be any more different than the two. So when I started working on these interpretations of moon jars, I was using a process of like, so I would build them and then deconstruct them and then reassemble them. And so I think like the reconstruction of these pieces kind of symbolize like my identity. And a lot of these pieces are like built to be kind of puzzle forms. So they often have moving parts. And I'm working with like elements of surprise in it too. And of course, humor is a big part of it. But they come apart. A lot of them come apart or come back together in like stacked forms, and it's hard to really describe it in words. But yeah, that's kind of the premise of like how I built the Moonjar series. Yeah.
And I like the fact that often there's things that are hidden, as you say, surprises that aren't always shown. So there are things that are visible and things that are invisible.
Yeah.
And I like this idea of messiness too that you just talked about. I think that a lot of people we've talked to on this podcast talk about that sort of imperfection, let's say, whatever that means to anyone, whatever perfection means, but just this idea of that things are messy. And
yeah, it's very messy.
And life is messy too, right?
Yeah.
Life is always messy.
Life is messy, and like a lot of the artists we talked to, you were born here, returned to Korea. You were in a lot of places and had a lot of transitions and living, sort of in the confused identity of Korean American or the wonderful identity, both.
Yeah.
Korean American. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so it's messy, but I was born in the U.S. and then when I was 11, I moved to Korea. And then when I moved to Korea, I had already been Americanized psychologically, and so it was weird because prior to moving to Korea, I was really excited. I, lived in a predominantly white neighborhood in the suburbs of Boston. I was one of maybe 2 or 3 Asian kids in the whole school. And so I told all my friends, I was really excited. I was like, look, guys, I'm going to my mother country and this is going to be really awesome. And and I do remember feeling very excited about that, very just having a lot of pride in this. But then I went to Korea and then what I didn't realize was that I would be seen as a foreigner. And so it's this experience of wow, I look like everybody else, but somehow I look different from them or they can detect that I'm from a different place. And so I didn't speak any Korean when I first went to Korea. And I think this is the moment in my life that kind of comes back into my work when I'm thinking about the moon jars and thinking about the flight attendants. I mean, I kind of knew Korean culture, but through the home, through my parents and through food. But I guess it was the first time where I really understood what they meant by collectivism. And going to school there, because I went to traditional Korean school. I didn't go to a foreign language high school. So when I went to school there, I was really shocked because the sense of collectivism was so strong and it's very different. I mean, it's just completely opposite. I mean, school was very militaristic. So I wore a uniform for the first time. And that's where the uniform enters into my life and has been a theme through many different kind of workplaces. But anyway, so and going to school and having to cut off all my hair, stick and abiding by very strict rules. And, the system is very much your actions reflect on the whole, which is so different from the U.S. In the U.S., it's all about the individual and think about yourself first, which is not a bad thing. But there are good things of both in both parts. I sometimes do miss this group mentality or feeling together, and really is kind of physical too, because I do remember my the friends that I first made in Korea, they wanted to hold my hand. And as an American, I was like, why are you touching me? But it's very sweet, to hold hands and to link arms and to do everything together and to feel accountability or something like that, to feel oh yeah, if I do something wrong, this affects other people around me. But of course, the dark side to that, is corporal punishment. So I do remember taking a quiz or something, and I didn't know how to read or write. So I would just pick C. Someone told me to pick C. So I would just pick C. And statistically, that really only gives you 20 or maybe 13%. I think I have this memory of what my average score would be. But sometimes you would get hit for however many questions you got wrong on a quiz and stuff like that. Oh. So it was very, very severe and really hard for me to adjust. And I think, but the hard truth to this too, though, is when you think about just the larger context of South Korea and economics and the rise of, wealth and development in South Korea, I feel they were only able to rapidly develop like that since it's really 1988 when the Seoul National Olympics happened, that somehow collectivism really aided all of that, which is like kind of, it's like two sides of the coin.
Yeah. So when you moved there, you were how old? You said 11?
I was 11.
11.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay?
I lived there for 5 years. And then I decided to come back. I've always wanted to be an artist. A lot has changed since I went to school there. I went to school there in the 90s. So things have changed a lot. But I did feel like when I went there, I don't know, the way you train to go into art school there is like very different too. It's very regimented, and it's very it's like very skill based. And so you're sketching, I don't know, 8 hours a day. It's almost like a sport. And that's not really how I wanted to engage myself with art. And so I thought, so that's why I wanted to come back to the US. So yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine that during those 5 years, you learned to read and write.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm out of practice, but it's funny. Language is really interesting to me because like, it's there, and even though I don't practice it that much, when I go to Korea, there's something that happens like in my brain or in your brain. Like it takes a few days, but then you start to transition into this other brain that thinks with a different architecture, which is the language. And the language really, I feel like different languages like give you different ideas. And so I had
totally agree.
I had this very strange experience, and that's really the plane ride. And the plane ride, I'm shedding like the ways of thought and moving into the other country, and it's a very strange experience. But yeah, I do speak and read and write Korean now.
So less corporal punishment, at the end of your 5 years there. So you moved back here, and that sounds at 16. So you were relatively young.
Yeah, 16, turning 17. Yeah.
And with your parents, or they stayed there, or how did that work?
Yeah, so they stayed there, and I have this memory of like when I went to Korea, I was a mess. I was just like, I can't believe this. I can't believe you didn't tell me about any, like, what is going on here? Like, are you out of your mind? So I had this freak out moment. My mom like sat me down and was like, look, if things aren't going well in 5 years, you can go back to the US. And I was like, I was like, okay. And I just kind of like put that in the back of my mind. I was like, all right, I just got to make it 5 years. So subconsciously, I just kind of like held on to that. And yeah, like 5 years later, my brother he got married very young at 24. He's still with his wife. And so they were about to get married, and they offered to house me for the last 2 years of high school. So I came back my junior year of high school, and I moved to Michigan then. So I lived with them in Michigan. And then I think my senior year was kind of, it was just like one semester. The credits all got like messed up when I came back. But yeah, so actually my senior year of high school, I moved out of my brother's house, and I lived with a roommate named Michelle. And so
you were Michelle and Michelle.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, I've been living on my own since then. It was a very different
hence
experience.
the comedy in your work. Yeah. Michelle and Michelle starts there.
Yeah.
I wanted to just ask about, you said you had to cut your hair when you went to school, so everybody has to have short hair or shaved hair?
Yeah. So my school, we had a 5 centimeter length rule. So if we cut our hair to that length, and there would be a teacher at the gate, and they sometimes would have rulers and measure like how long. We would have like very creative ways of like hiding the length of your hair. So but when you got caught, like they would cut, one side of your hair. So all day long, you just have this weird haircut,
Oh, wow.
Which is funny because nowadays I see this haircut where it's like
uneven.
Yeah, it's like super short up here. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of like the look that we didn't want. But yeah.
It's in fashion now.
Yeah.
So wait, but 5 centimeters measured from where?
Oh, from below your ears.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So every school had like different lengths. But my school, it actually was longer than other schools. The school in the next neighborhood was 3 centimeters, I think. Yeah.
I ask about the hair because hair is an important figure, if you will, or trope or character in your work too, no?
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking about works like Our Mother and Piano Lady. Could you maybe talk about hair in that context?
Yeah. So I made those in the beginning of the year, and I was thinking about those moon jars, and I first thought about women in my family, and particularly about their hair. And so my mom and women from my mother's generation, a lot of them have this pamamori or permed hair, and it's like beautifully crafted, and like I watched my mother like craft her hair, curl, get it permed, but then like perfect the waves and the curls for like, it seemed like 2 hours in the morning. I don't know. And so I thought about that motion like over and over again. And it's funny because like she didn't allow me to ever touch her hair. Whenever I got close to it, she'd be like, stop me. Like, don't come close. Like, you're going to mess it up. But the hair really, I think for them, what I come to understand is like it's a symbol of like status and power. And my mom always told me like how the hair like gives her height, like literal height, because she's a very short woman. And so yeah, that's kind of like what I thought about when I was making those busts.
So they are busts that are probably 15 inches.
Yeah,
would
yeah.
you say?
Mm-hmm.
And in some of them, the top comes off also, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a jar.
Like a cookie jar.
Like a cookie jar.
It is like a cookie jar. We
Hopefully
talked
something sweet inside.
Exactly. Some of them have figures in there too. So a piano and a loaf of bread on top of the hair.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are, one of them is about my aunt, who was a pianist, and she passed away, but she's someone that I lived with in college in Buffalo. And yeah, so that piece is to honor her. We were pretty close. My aunt was a very difficult character. I'm trying to find the words for her. She had a very troubled life. Personal life. And I think part of it is immigrating to the U.S. and not really finding a solid ground or like finding the community that she wanted. And so she was someone, I think, in the community that was just like hard to get along with. But I lived with her in college, and we were very close. She was very eccentric. I think that's what it was. She like giggled literally like a schoolgirl. And yeah, but there's like many little quirks about her. And I think about her a lot. She passed away when I first came to New York City right after college. And she's someone that I think about here and there. She pops into my dreams and stuff like that. But I think what it is about those pieces and why I wanted to make it into a literature jar is that her and just like my mom and my other aunts and like people in my family, with this hair, it's like just putting your best forward in your outer appearance, like, you look fine on the outside, but all of them just like have all this messy stuff that's going on inside, and just totally repressing all of those emotions. And because I think part of it is like a defense mechanism or survival. And I'm just starting to think about like, that's not unique to just women in my family. I think it's like a story or a collective story about people in general in Korea, and how like, especially in South Korea, well, North Korea too, but Korea as a whole. And it's kind of, I'm starting to think about how there's an element of like having to repress the past, which is full of violence and war. It is a result of war, other people's wars.
Right.
And yet it's almost like a survival mechanism. Like you just have to like keep curling that hair. As long as we keep that hair 3 inches standing above the top of my head, I think we're going to be okay.
I think there's something in that. I really do, though. I think so many people that go through trauma have those kinds of daily routines, but they're more like rituals.
Yeah.
That just so that they don't lose their selves, or they don't lose their humanity, or they don't lose the everydayness of their lives. Like I think that those are important gestures that people repeat in those moments too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It ties back to the flight attendant. And I think that sort of performance of
Exactly. Yeah.
home, of beauty in so many ways too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the performance of something normal.
yeah.
Yeah. Like if you were really to show what was going on the inside, what would that look like?
It would be Nutgate. It would
Yeah.
just be wild and crazy.
Yeah.
Messy nuts all over the place.
Yeah. It's funny because like on Instagram now, I keep getting fed all this like Korean Air flight attendant accounts, which is kind of really interesting. And I feel like such a creep, but I'm like, what do they do outside of this job? You know, like, what kind of parties are they going to?
Are you admitting to stalking people on Instagram?
I don't know. It's feeding it to me, but I'm like, yeah, this is so fascinating. And I wonder if they're just like, I just want to see their hair all messed up, you know?
Are you loyal to Korean Air?
I do love Korean Air. Oh my God. It's the best.
Now I'm jealous. Now I need to fly Korean Air.
You do. You really do.
Yep. And if you come back with a little scarf on, I know why.
Yeah, and I'm going to cut my hair, 5 centimeters below my ears.
Thank you for chatting with us today. It's been really fun to have you in the studio.
Thanks so much for having me.
You have a lot going on at the moment. You have a few pieces, many places. Do you want to tell us where?
Yeah. So I have a piece in the Brooklyn Artists Exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum right now. I also am in a group show at Burlington City Arts Center in Burlington, Vermont. And I'm in a show called The Future of Clay, and that's where I'm showing my very first flight attendant. I'm super excited about that show. It's a group show, and so that should be up until end of December.
Great. And for 2025, do you know of anything coming up?
I'm working towards a show right now, it's starting to develop. So I'm kind of like in the very early stages of putting the show together.
Can't wait. Can't wait to see it. And before we send listeners to your website, I just wanted to ask you about Rat Chicks as your URL.
Yeah.
Why?
So prior to delving deeper into my sculptural practice, I've had a tableware line called Rat Chicks for a while. And Rat Chicks is functional pottery ware. The name is a play. It's a play on the words ratchet and rad chicks, and it's all about humor and kind of colorful pattern, surface decoration, and yeah. So it's rat actually X chicks, and I thought about like what a rat and a bird would look like if they were to meet, and maybe it would be
place
something
of discomfort or messiness or imperfection.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us here today at the podcast studio. And for our listeners, if you want to find out more about Michelle's work, you can visit ratxchicks.club.
Thanks, Michelle. This has been great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Destination.